Hello, and welcome to episode number 112 of WrestleRotica, the podcast that combines wrestling with erotica. This week we have one story to share. The story is entitled Porn Wrestling Federation, Volume 2. The scene opens up with the ravishing Russian Lana attempting to sell a house to an interested client. Everything seems to be in order until he asks her how much she really wants to sell the property. Lana is not interested in losing the sale, so she agrees to do anything to sell the property. Without further ado, let's get to this week's story.
In early 2016, professional wrestling, and to be specific sports entertainment giant WWE, was in a crisis. Bad deals, lawsuits, falling ratings and questionable booking decisions led to the world giant having to make tough decisions with personal and professional consequences. For a long time, the WWE had been a proudly PG-friendly company. But when they were approached with a very non-PG offer from a very XXX-rated business, they were left with little choice but to accept. The formation of the Porn Wrestling Federation was a joint wrestling and pornographic promotion based initially around the entire roster of WWE divas or female superstars, as they were rebranded as being sold to an established porn website and filmmaker who, working with the WWE, would create a weekly TV show of in-ring action for worldwide, in fitting with the general PG way of the rest of Raw and SmackDown's broadcasts. The PWF would also, however, create pornographic films and scenes starring the divas for sale, download and on-demand streaming through its adult-only website. The WWE would retain all the rights of the match-based programming and would receive part of the profits from both sides of the PWF's productions. As PWF grew in popularity, no guesses as to which side of the business was consistently making far more money than the other, so too did it start to expand with additional talents drawn from NXT and the global independent wrestling scene. The existing roster of WWE female superstars, however, were willing to show their sexual skill on camera, no matter their existing in-ring skills or credibility. In fact, there are even opportunities for those who had never even properly stepped foot into a ring to showcase their talents.
Porn Wrestling Federation presents WWE diva and former film actress and model Lana in Selling a Ravishing Deal with some Russian ass. The video starts with the interior of a nice and spacious looking bedroom with a large king-size bed in it as the main attraction, with the wardrobe and chest of drawers in the background. The door at the side opens and stepping with her high heels, clicking on the wooden floor, and holding the documents folder under her arm is the blonde and curvy, ravishing Russian, the WWE diva known as Lana. With her hair up in her signature bun, she's clad in a familiar, tight-fitting, dark business attire of a suit jacket that strains against her large rounded tits, and a matching short skirt that nicely shows off those long, smooth, and tan legs of hers, along with her thick, juicy ass. And this, you can see, is the bedroom of the property. Lana says in her thick, Russian accent, playing the role of a real estate home seller, as she's leading in a client viewing this house. A handsome, desirably built young man with short hair who is smartly clad in dress pants and a plain shirt. I can see. Nice! Very nice. He says with a nod, playing his part as he looks interested in the surroundings. Well, this is all really above and beyond what I was looking for. I love it. Excellent. She smiles as she looks to him. Well then, if everything is in order, I have the paperwork right here, and we can sign it off, and soon have you with the keys by the morning. Well, there is, one thing. He says, taking a moment to look over the blonde, stunning figure. What is wrong? She asked, looking confused. The property is in the price range you asked, and from what you've said, everywhere more than meets your expectations. Well, no, actually, it's more about you. He says, smiling as he steps towards her. You've been the most professional home seller I've met yet, and by far the most beautiful. He adds with a seductive tone. I pride myself on being a professional Russian woman, she says, raising an eyebrow at his comments, as she places a hand onto her hip. Do every handsome American like you hit on the woman trying to sell you at home? She asks, flirting back with a smirk. Only the hottest ones, baby. Let me put it like this. I'd be happy to buy this place with cash as well. But I want to see how good of a hard seller you are. He says with a not exactly subtle tone. How badly you want to sell this deal. She lets out a seductive laugh, putting the folder she's carrying out of the way onto the nearest furniture before she moves back up to him, already giving an answer as she places her hands onto his shirt, giving a naughty smile as she starts to undo the buttons of his shirt. I'm a woman who always gets what she wants, Lana states, locking eyes with his hunk, as she undoes that top a little too easily and quickly, letting his muscular chest be shown off as her hands continue downward. I always sell my deals. You want to see perhaps my hands-on approach to business? She teases, already showing her decision, as she slips down to her knees in front of the client, as she willingly agrees to a completely indecent proposal in order to secure this sale. Fuck yeah, I do! He answers, removing his shirt and tossing it out of the way. The camera moving in as her hands do quick work to first undo his belt, and then lower his pants down. Her eyes going wide in shock appearing on her pretty face, as she sees the thick, long, and already hardening piece of American man meat hanging between his legs. Show me all you've got, baby, and I'll gladly buy this place from you. I think this is a deal that will be mutually beneficial for us both. The sexy blonde says, now casting a smirk up at him, with already clear desire in her eyes, as she takes a hold of his cock, starting to run both of her hands back and forth along his thighs, causing him to lightly groan as his rod gets stiffer within her stroking palms. With the magic of video editing, a jump forward to a minute or so now sees her gripping his rock hard and lengthy shaft, giving a pump as she approving licks her lips, glancing to the recording camera with a saucy smirk before casting that gaze upward to her co-star in this porno flick. You have a wonderful cock, sir, she says to confirm her approval, leaning in to give his fat bellend a kiss on the top, followed by a lick over the tip, giving his shaft a couple of pumps as she teases the crown with her tongue. Soon, though, she parts those bright red lips, taking him into her mouth to make him moan as she sucks on the head, her hand giving a firmer round of swift pumps before her lips part, and we see her tongue swirling around him as she pulls back. You like that? Like how my full fucking lips feel? She asks with a naughty tone as she stares up, not waiting for a response as she takes him back inside, but now sinks down, a slow slurp moving down to take half of his size into her mouth before she lifts back up all the way, pausing so she can pump her hand over the length and then pushing her oral hole back down onto him. Yeah! Suck that dick, baby! The handsome client encourages as the ravishing Russian blows him, smoothly lifting her head upward to just the crown of his cock before she slides back downward and repeats the motion, keeping her pouty lips nicely pressed around his thickness as she shows this is far from her first time giving out a blowjob. The camera gets in nice and close, recording how that big American dick is being taken in and out of her oral hole at a steady pace, able to hear her muffled groans as she works him over, already starting to apply her saliva onto that man meat and making sure to keep her free hand stroking away at his inches not yet taken to her mouth. She moans around his dick, raising upward to the crown and twisting her blonde-haired head from side to side, expertly grinding those soft lips against his rod to keep him easily moaning. That trick allows her to lift her hands from him, blindly reaching for the buttons of her suit jacket and undoing them, pulling the garment open and letting her large rounded tits fall free.
Hey, where are the titties at?
And even able to glance to the camera and giving a seductive look as she peels it off and tosses it away. That task out of the way, one hand rests onto his thigh as she resumes the motion of bobbing her head along his stiff prick, going at a quicker pace and taking more of his dick into her hungry and talented mouth. But making herself moan with the other hand as she grabs a hold of her own breast in order to lift and squeeze it as she puts on another dirty show. Yeah! Nice and deep, baby! The moans continue to come from the hunk she's sucking off. His ability to take such a red-hot blowjob obvious as he stands and lets her go to work on him. Her saliva starting to drip from all those fat inches, along with her own chin, from the repeated slurping motion as her bright red lipstick, coated lips flow back and forth along this big, made-for-starting porn cock. As she rocks herself back and forth onto him, she continues to lock eyes up at him with a sexy glare, made hotter by how she's groaning around that tool and teasing both him and herself as she feels up and grips her own big tits that are starting to glisten as her dripping saliva is falling down onto that gorgeous chest of hers. Gah! Showing all she can do as she looks to convince his client to buy the property she's sucking him off in. She pushes her pretty face all the way down into his crotch, causing herself to gag as she deep throats all of his length. Eyes closed as she keeps herself held down all the way, so her nose is pressing into his body. It's gaining the effect she was after. His moans a little deeper as he gasps in delight, and despite gagging, letting out another raspy gag around that thick cock, she finally has to relent, pulling all the way up and off of him so she can gasp for air. The sight of his saliva-coated dick being captures before she hungrily drives back down, getting in another round of sucks along the majority of his length. The sloppy nature of this run only further causing her spit to seep past those pouty lips and drip down her chin as well as fall from that very rod she's servicing, as her large tits are doing a fine job of catching all that saliva to leave them looking even hotter than before. She groans as she gives a last suck, pulling her mouth off from him and shifting back, looking up at him with a seductive smirk. That was a good start. To our negotiations, of course. Lana says, moving to stand up off the floor. I think that our discussions must continue further. Don't you agree? She asks, but is already reaching for her skirt, turning around as she starts to slowly push it down her stunning smooth legs to show off her fantastically rounding and juicy ass, along with the shaved pussy that already appears to be a little wet from just giving out that blowjob. Let's test out the bed, baby! Get up on it! The would-be buyer on the property she's trying to sell to him instructs, giving his dick a couple strokes for good measure as she steps out of her clothing, leaving her just with a pair of sexy high heels on. Of course! Anything for a good sell, she shamelessly says, openly admitting to be whoring herself out just as still a deal as she moves herself onto the spacious bed, laying on her side and using a hand to raise up her leg, stretching the other out with a slight bend so that the camera can get a clear view of her hot and tight-looking pussy. Stepping in, her co-star tapping her folds for a testing moment before he lines it up and with a firm thrust pushes it into her snatch, making her moan out as she gets to experience being filled up just from that first pump before he draws back, almost completely pulling out, but some of that fat crown still laying inside her. It isn't long, though, before he starts to give it to her. He body slightly turned, but close up against her, so he can also hold onto that extended leg and drape it over her sturdy shoulder, beginning to rock his hips back and forth so she can slide his dick into that wet and snug hole. And already liking what he's feeling, if his moans are any indication. Oh yes! Fuck me! Fuck my tight little pussy! The WWE diva groans, the demand looking across with another intense and lusty stare at the hunk she's barely met, but has already sucked off all his dick, and now is looking like she's going to be getting all of his rock-hard rod deep into her snatch, as well from the way he's steadily thrusting himself in and out of her box. Ah! Oh yes! Keep going! Gimme! All of that big American cock! She moans out with the kind of tone no doubt handpicked for porn, all too happy to let him send his member deep into her snug and damp pussy, as this Russian beauty groans out to herself, shamelessly loving how she's getting filled up and being fucked on the bed of the property she's supposed to be, showing off, not using as she attempts to give this hung stud extra incentive to agree to buy the place. Oh yeah, fucking hot! Tight pussy! Ugh! He grunts, his thrust now getting swifter, his body up close to her, and his crotch beginning to connect with her tan and curved body, feeding the former model and actress turned sports entertainer more than a generous amount of his inches. As that smack of his skin meeting her sounds out, to mix with both of their moans. Ah! You're so fucking hot, baby! The obviously experienced at fucking hunk is able to groan out as he continues to send his length back and forth into her smoothly and with ease. Her folds now nice and slick as she's more than turned on from this all, but still tight around his big dick to ensure he's getting plenty of pleasure from this as well. Oh! And you! You a real American stud!
USA! Danny Bandana and the USA!
She purrs with a sinful lick of her lips, her body beginning to jolt back a little from the force being put behind these repeated thrusts as she gets filled up, her tits jiggling for an extra visual treat for the filming camera to capture, along with a clear view of the ravishing Russian getting stuffed full with his long American dick. Ah! Fuck! You fucked so good! My pussy! So full! She sighs in delight, keeping her tan body laying in place and staring down between her legs as she keeps them apart and out of the way both of him and that recording device, and for her own enjoyment as she's watching the shaft plunging back and forth into her snatch, with no sign of stopping yet. That desirably muscular man indeed keeps on pumping almost all of his length forward into that needy and damp pussy. That brisk and perfectly timed pace, more than enough to keep them both moaning away. That smacking sound also ringing out to add to the mood as he takes full advantage of this indecent proposal. That seeing this blonde beauty willingly agree to fuck in order to sell this house to him. Bringing his pumps to a stop, her leans in towards her on the bed, his dick still buried into her as he gets almost nose to nose with the woman he's banging. She in turn biting down on her bottom lip seductively as she grinds her pussy back against his dick to make him groan. Flicking her tongue out at her, she takes the invitation as she leans her head up and the two begin making out. Lewd open-mouthed kisses with plenty of tongue seen. The two exchanging saliva and then moans as he sneaks in a couple more thrusts into her slot, while their tongues smack against one another's. After the kiss is broken off, the naked beauty gives the stud, still with his cock deep inside her, an intense, narrowed-eyed glare. I bet you fuck your American whores like this.
Oh yeah!
She hisses, groaning as he pulls that shaft out of her snatch. Said muscular stud just smirks back, moving around to the upper part of the bed as he lays down on it, his dick pointing up and looking to be slick from her pussy juices. Another clear sign that she's been shamelessly loving this sexual activity, even as indecent as it's been. On top, Lana lets out a seductive laugh as she shifts herself, smirking as she crawls sexily up the bed over him. I like that. I will show you how a real Russian woman fucks a man. She vows, facing him with her back in that rounded booty, facing the camera now, as she races her hips up, reaching under to line his cock up with her snatch, as she lowers herself slowly down. Oh yes! Fuck! The stunning blonde groans, looking back over her shoulder, so the camera can see her moaning and the expression of pure, sinful joy on that gorgeous face, as she starts off by rocking her shapely hips back and forth, grinding her pussy down against his dick and causing his moans to be heard as a sign her action is more than doing the trick. Ah! Yes! I will fuck you! I will fuck you do good! She vows that she begins to do just that, raising herself up to above the halfway mark on that fat shaft before she lets her tan body drop down. The slap of her frame meeting his ringing out before she repeats the action, moaning herself as she rides that dick with a clear energy, and not just to keep all the pleasure coming as she stuffs her own snatch full with all that man meat. The stud underneath her certainly appreciates her lustful efforts, groaning out in delight as he lays back and lets her show that she can not only take a good banging, but can handle a cock just fine herself, as if her early red-hot blowjob onto the same shaft wasn't proof enough of that. But knowing his part in this skin flick, he only lets out moans and grunts, so the focus can be on her, using that fine and curved body to perfection. All he has to do is watch and let her have her turn taking the lead, feeling her wet and still tight pussy being raised and lowered at the impressively paced and forceful to match rhythm over his dick, as this blonde bombshell shows that she's not only a stranger to riding some dick, she can easily handle one of his great size as well. Oh, fuck! Oh, yes! She continues to moan away with every bounce delivered onto that mighty length she's willingly impelled on top of. Her juicy butt cheeks jiggling now each time she drops down, and that booty slaps against his strong thighs. And each moment captured by the filming camera, along with, of course, the main focus of the pussy of the ravishing Russian taking the long American dick of this hunk deep up into herself, that snatch dropping all the way down to take him up to the hilt, over and over again. Ah! Fuck! Oh! Oh! I just fucking love... Ah! American cock! She squeals in delight, once more looking back and deliberately biting down on her bottom lip for an added sexy show to be recorded. Drops of sweat now starting to form and drip down her face. And the rest of that stunning frame. The way she's working herself so smoothly and quickly up and down that big cock, making it appear like she was destined to star in pornography rather than in sports entertainment. Oh yeah, baby! Fucking take that dick! The client she's selling her body to, in order to steal this money, making deal, moans his approval. That cock up into her, his hands reaching up to give her large tits a firm squeeze. To make her groan, but showing his experience in porn, it's also to bring her attention to him. He slides his hands down her body to her sides, pulling her forward so she's leaning over him now, that tanned ass sticking out towards the camera, as she's now made to do a rocky motion, rolling his hips forward to slide her snatch up his big dick, before moving back and in turn, sending her pussy back towards the base of that shaft. Oh fuck! Yes! She hisses with sinful delight at this new pace and position, all too happy to do it, as it still means she can stuff all that cock up into herself over and over again, with a more steady and savoring pace, and one that the filming camera can clearly witness as we see that thick rod being taken in and out of her soaking wet love tunnel. Big! Ah! American cock! Feels so good! Ah! Filling out my slutty, Russian pussy! Those filthy words continue to pour out of her open, moaning mouth, as she's fully embracing being recorded, fucking for a porn film, as she once again looks back with a lustful stare at her own snatch, seeing the stunning sight of her working her damp twat up and down on a long and thick shaft with the kind of perfection that many a veteran skin flick starlet would struggle to maintain. After filming her handling his cock like this for a couple more motions, the camera moves around the bed, getting a shot of those big breasts shaking from her body rocking back before focusing on her face, getting another saucy look as she gazes into the lens. I make sure to get my commission. I do whatever it takes to seal this deal. Lana states with a devilish smirk. An edit in the film, and a few minutes later, Lana is up on top of the bed, her face resting on the sheets, and her tan and thick ass sticking up into the air. Her arms reaching back to hold onto her own legs, with both those lower holes exposed to the camera to see. And in the sight of what's to come, her asshole is shining, along with the crack of her ass from lubricant that's been used during the break. Stepping up over her to mount her, the client she's been fucking, to try and sell this property, to lines up his similarly prepared cock with that last of her holes he's yet to experience, letting out a groan as he presses his crown against that tight entrance before he sinks down. Enough to make her gasp out and rock forward as her ass gets invaded. Oh, fuck! Ah! Oh, fuck! The WWE diva lets out deep groans, closing her eyes as she feels her thick, Russian ass getting pumped by this suitably fat American dick. His motion steady and slow as he allows them both to adjust to this new sensation, showing that he knows full well how to tap some fine ass like this as he plunges his dick in and out of her rear hole. Fuck, fuck my ass! Use me, like a fucking whore! She gasps out the demand, managing to open her eyes and stare back as he's soon establishing a proper focused rhythm to work his dick in and out of her vice-like asshole. His hands on his thighs for support, so she can slide his shaft downward into that back passage as he lowers his sturdy frame downward before lifting back up so he can soon repeat the actions. From the groans this experienced stud is letting out, he's certainly loving the feeling of that tight booty all around his thick pole as he sends himself steadily down and up from her ass, and his squatted in mounting position also allows the recording camera a clear view of this anal action going on as he plunges that shaft straight down into the backside of the busty blonde underneath him. In turn, her own shameless cries of erotic delight indicate that even without her snatch being simulated right now, she's loving being used like this, keeping herself perfectly in this face-down, ass-up position, allowing herself to gaze back and not just witness her booty taking all this dick into herself, but let that filming device capture the pleasure all over her stunning face as this butt-fucking continues on. Oh, fuck! Oh, shit! Oh, fuck! More! Fuck me more! She moans out, as even with the great amount of thick dick being slid in and out of her tight back passage, it's still not enough for the now slutty beauty, who is supposed to be trying to sell this house instead of whoring herself out, in an attempt to do just that. She grits her teeth, another intense stare back at the stud, plunging his American shaft into the stunning ass of the ravishing Russian, to further make her demands clear that she wants even more of this anal domination of her.
Feed me more!
Fuck! Fuck! With the sounds of her loud yells, it's soon clear she's getting what she wants as he picks up the pace, adjusting his position back so he can grip her waist, now swinging his hips forcefully forward towards her booty, ramming his pull in deep before soon drawing back and repeating the motion to leave her squealing and moaning like a true cock-addicted slut.
At Passages Malibu, we treat and heal the underlying causes of addiction so you can live a healthy, addiction-free life.
Fuck! The hunk above her grunts out with each inward and out motion he sends, stiffly into that still snug back passage, but its motion now unsurprisingly smooth, considering how many steady, repeated thrusts she's taken into her rounded and tanned ass before he turned things up a gear to pound into her as she begged for. This increased level of pace might be making him sweat now as he groans out, but it's all for the benefit of this naughty to say the least scene. The camera getting in the whole side of her back door, getting deeply rammed as that fat and lengthy dick that's not just porn star quality, but more and equipped for giving her backside the kind of pounding it and she deserves. The curvy blonde is still hoarding herself with her booty raised right up so she can, this pounding in and out of her tan and thick butt cheeks. Her pussy looking to be sexily moist, even though she hasn't even been touching herself, keeping her hands gripping her legs so she can keep them and in turn her backside spread so she can get as much of that dick inside her that can fit. Ah! Ah! My ass! So full! Oh! Keep fucking my ass! She's still able to beg for more. Looking far from the professional businesswoman she'd been at the start of this, now just a desperate, anal-loving, cock-drunk whore as she gasps for air, and the sweat drips off her curvaceous frame to stain the sheets of the bed she's been getting fucked on. As part of this indecent proposal with this potential property buyer, who's ramming his cock into her stunning, tight ass. Despite her cry showing she wasn't looking for a break in the action, she still sighs with some relief when he pulls his dick out from her backside, the camera getting a good look at that now gaping asshole of hers. The fun isn't quite over yet for her, however, as he shifts her over, now laying down onto the sheets, and rather impressively, considering the pounding she just took. She's got plenty of energy and strength in her to move herself, positioning herself over him, with her back facing him. Gritting her teeth, she lowers her ass down onto his cock, as he holds himself straight up for her, as she eases downward, with her legs spread for a squat, showing off her damp snatch in the process. And once lowered down enough, she leans backward, her arms going back to arch herself off of both the bed and the hunk now underneath her. Oh, yes! Oh, fuck! So deep! Fucking my tight ass! She groans in joy as the stud she's been convincing starts to thrust his dick in and out of her asshole with a firm pace. His on her waist to help keep the sweating beauty in place as he once again taps that juicy backside, already putting enough force into the motion to make her rock back each time he sends that stiff rod up into her already well-fucked backside. Ah! Don't! Don't stop! Ah! Fuck that ass! Ah! Fuck me! The ravishing Russian continues to lustfully beg, despite the fact she is getting all that, and then some, as that pistoning American shaft swiftly and stiffly slams up into her tanned and rounded rear. The slam of his crotch meeting those cheeks, being heard with every motion of his hips, he sends towards her. Making the most, to say the least, of this opportunity to deeply tap one of the finest asses in all of sports entertainment, this experienced stud underneath her keeps on pumping his big dick with speed and force into that juicy, built-to-be banged backside, grunting with every pump in and out of that still snug back passage of hers. Also, like a true pro of the porn world, he's letting the action do all the talking. Only grunts and moans being heard from the sweating hunk, so the focus can be on how she's taking his dick so far, up into her ass, over and over again, along with all the sinful moans she's making. That alone would be worth the price of the skin flick. Ah! Oh! You feel so good! Fuck! Fucking my slutty! Tight fucking ass! The horny WWE diva moans out to state the obvious, her curvy body jolting back over him every time he sends all that fat man-made meat deep up into her asshole. The motion making her big breasts erotically bounce in time with the rest of that tan frame that now looks far more suited for this entertainment industry instead of pro wrestling.
Sports entertainment.
Ah! Oh! Fuck me! Fuck my ass! Oh! Yes! 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 She hisses her delight, her head tilting back. As those moans pour out of her, the camera getting a clear close-up shot of her lower holes as the mighty thick rod keeps on driving up into her booty from underneath, before drawing back a few inches, only to repeat the motion. And the added treat of seeing her dripping wet snatch just above, showing just how turned on the beauty getting her ass fuck still is, even without touching herself there. As that stunning body rocks back and forth in response to every hard pump sent in and out of that now loosened up than before asshole, the beautiful sports entertainer and former model is showing off her own sexual ability to just be able to take this kind of anal pounding that would have rendered many a normal, red-blooded woman a wreck long before this point of this wild, shameless ass hammering. Instead, as her booty jiggles with every pump as the stud she's on top of sends his crotch slapping into those full cheeks. She's able to keep herself arched back in place, her large boobs bouncing away with every jolt back she does, and a sinful lust in her eyes as she gives the camera recording every moment of the booty pumping the occasional stare to ensure this porno is extra memorable for those watching her getting fucking. Ah! Ugh! Fuck! Get off of me, babe! The stud who has been expertly hammering that fantastic ass of hers suddenly grunts. No doubt the effects of keeping up such a deep and swift pace having its effect on him. Quickly reacting, however, she's soon lifting up from his dick with a groan, allowing the camera to get a good look at that well-fucked asshole and her still dripping wet pussy. Another edit in the skin flick, and now Lana is on her knees in front of the hunk who has had his big cock in all of her holes. Now, though, he's being made to groan as he thrusts that shaft up between her big, rounded tits, as she presses them against his member to more than generously smother that rod with her mountains. His pump's more than forceful enough to make those boobs jiggle when she slides up between them. Even with her grasping her own chest to tightly sandwich that man meat. From how deep his grunts are, and the rather towing desperate way that shaft is being slid up and down between her tits, shows that his peak is fast approaching. And the grin on her gorgeous face shows she's eager for it. Your big American cock feels so good. Fucking my dirty big Russian titties. She seductively purrs, starting with equal lust up at the stud, who has left her a sweating but obviously satisfied mess after driving this long and thick rod of his into her mouth. Her snatch and her juicy ass, with every moment having been documented in this red-hot porn film. And it's getting quite a similarly steamy finish with some deep tit fucking as that member pumps up and down into the cleavage she's created by pushing her breast against and around his tool. You going to come for me, stud? Going to spray my big whore tits with all your cum? She dares him, licking her lips with a hunger for that load, as she all too eagerly lets him use another desirable part of him for his own pleasure, as he sends his shaft thrusting smoothly and quickly in between her breasts. The feeling even making her groan, but not surprisingly, his deep moans are far louder than even the slap of his crotch hitting the bottom of her tits when he pumps into her. She doesn't have to wait too much longer for it, in fact, as Lana gasps when the first big spurt of his jizz fires out of his cock, hitting up onto the bottom of her chin and upper neck before he soon pulls out, gripping and stroking his cock, and quick to react like she's a pro porn starlet. She keeps her tits pushed up and together for him as an unmissable target. No surprise that he takes the offer, jerking his load out onto her breast, as he sends the warm, thick shots of jizz down onto both of her boobs, some landing down into her cleavage, but the majority leaving a sexy glaze over her chest, making her groan with a sexy smirk as he watches her pump away, finally flicking the last drops down onto her tits. Letting go of his spent rod, he steps back and out of shot, with his job more than accomplished, leaving the filming camera to get in close, getting a shot of those now cum-covered tits before the ravishing Russian uses her hands to rub all that creamy American cum over her breast to really coat them, making herself dirtily groan in the process. The only thing I love more than stealing a dill is getting fucked by a big American cock. Lana states, smirking again, she looks to the camera with another lusty glare. And it's on this smoking hot sight that the camera focuses on for a long moment before the pornography film starts fading out and comes to an end. The end. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed this week's story, please be sure to like, review, and subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts. Visit us elsewhere online, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and as always, our official website, WrestleEroticAPod.com. Thank you and have a good week.